Hey y'all, it's Crystal. Thanks for coming by today. Just a video today where I'm going to be talking about my reading plans for the week of Weird. Yes, so the week of Weird, we did an announcement video last week. Jason over at Jason's Weird Reads and I are hosting, and it's just, I'll put the announcements below. It's going to be from March 12th to the 19th, and we're just going to spend a week reading weird stuff. Yeah, pretty easy. And I think it's going to be lots of fun, and we're looking forward to it. And I just wanted to just do a thank you for the folks that are going to be joining in with us. We're excited that some folks are joining in. So, also with that being said, I do want to go ahead and say here that I did create a Discord for it, Discord server. So if you are into that, I'll put that link below. You can hop in and let us know what you're reading. As that week happens, let us know about the stories or books that you're reading. Let us know how they are, how weird do they get, all that good stuff, all of the Discord fun. So it's there because you need one more Discord to join, right? Is that all the preamble? I think so. So yeah, I'm just going to talk about what I'm planning on reading, and I got a lot on my list, but and then I'm going to probably talk about some recommendations of either like authors or specific books, kind of maybe at the end also. But of course, my TBR itself will be like some recommendations for you for look at authors you can look for, certain stories. Whatever. So let's just hop right in, because I have a feeling this might be a long one. So now, my week of Weird is going to be full of a lot of short stories. I am really looking forward to, checking out some authors I've been meaning to read forever, that whole thing. So a lot of short stories, but I've also got one sort of novel that I'm kind of going to focus on the week too, and some audio, some ebooks, some physical. I've got it all. So let's hop right in. So let's go over to the 5 prompts that we had. So prompt number 1 is just old weird, any thing from like the 1910s to through the 1970s. It's a big period of time. So, and from this big anthology, which is called The Weird, of course, a compendium of strange and dark stories, edited by Anne and Jeff Vandermeer. This itself will get you through the entire week of Weird, really. But there are a lot of good stories in here that I'm going to pull from. I'm going to hope to get to, I wrote them down on my list here. As I look down, I want to get to Casting the Runes by M.R. James. I've yet to read M.R. James. Need to do that. I want to read the book by Margaret Irwin, because I want to make sure I'm reading some women as we get weird this week too. There's a story here called The Town of Cats by Hagiwara Sakutaro, because I also want to make sure I'm reading some translated works. There's several translated stories in here, which is really great. I also want to read White Rabbits by Leonora Carrington, because I want to read Leonora Carrington. I always knew Leonora Carrington from her artwork. I don't think I realized that she was a writer till somewhere more recently. So I'm really excited to check out that story. And then in this collection, The Summer People by Shirley Jackson is in here too. So again, I want to make sure I'm getting some women, especially of the older time period. And I've never read Summer People, so that's the old weird stories that I'm going to be pulling out of this big anthology called The Weird. Now again, this anthology itself is readily available, and it's not it's a little pricey because it's huge, but you can find this is you can buy this. I've actually seen it on Book Outlet once upon a time too. I'm sure it's not there now, but what I'm saying is this one is available pretty regularly. Check your libraries, whatever, they may have that too, so you can find this book. Okay. I also I found an audio on Scribd is The Gerard Street Mystery and Other Weird Tales by John Charles Dent, just because I like to add some audio to my week. So I've got a few audios listed for the week. Again, I've read Shirley Jackson, but the rest of these authors I have never read from. So I'm really excited to check out these old stories and see what they're all about. Okay, so that'll kind of take care of old weird, and I'm sure they'll fit into some of the other prompts, but that's what I've got for old weird. Okay, so for new weird, because this really pulls stories. I think the most recent story is up to 2000 and something. As 2010. So this, and the oldest story here I think is 1901 or something like that. 1908. So this really spans a lot of time. So again, if you read if you just get this book, for that week, you can find anything in here. But I do have a few newer stories in here I want to get to also. The Dark by Karen Joy Fowler, author I've never read yet, of course. The Replacements by Lisa Tuttle is in here. I've been dying to read some Lisa Tuttle. She has her the short story collection, The Nest of Nightmares. I've just heard it's fantastic. But I've got one of her stories in here. And also Details by China Mieville's in here. And I've yet to read China Mieville, and that just seems crazy pants to me that I've not read him yet. So I'm going to start with a short story and see where that goes. Okay, now I've got another anthology that I'm a little hesitant to show, only because it's not as readily available as this one, but I do have a copy. This is one of those that's really expensive online, but check your library because they may have it. But it's actually called The New Weird, and it is actually also edited by the Vandermeers, Ed and Jeff Vandermeer. And so this collects more, modern stories, and then has a lot of, there's actually some essays kind of in the back that talks about kind of what is new weird and that kind of stuff, and a really nice intro, by the Vandermeers about what is new weird, all that kind of good stuff. So check your library though. Maybe your library's got a copy of this one. Online, like I said, on eBay's and all that stuff, it's pretty expensive. I just have this old ex-library edition that I found used, but anyway. So from this collection, I've marked a few that I'd like to try. The Luck in the Head by M. John Harrison. And again, these are just authors I've not read yet and want to. So, The Braining of Mother Lamprey, just because that one sounds cool. And that's by Simon D. Ings. And this one sounds cool too. The Lizard of Ooze by Jay Lake. Yes, please. And then another author I've been dying to read, haven't yet, is Brian Evanson. And his story, Watson's Boy, is in here. So, I'm going to try to, these are short stories, so I'm gonna work my way through. So these are two just general weird fiction collections that you can find, and so those are some I'm gonna pull from. So also for new weird, I have this collection of short stories by Kathy Koja. Kathy Koja, absolutely an author that I think leans into the weird, really kind of transgresses those dark fiction elements, and so it definitely falls under weird fiction. So I have this collection of short stories. So maybe read a story or two. I'm not going to try to read the whole collection, but maybe pull one or two stories that week sometime. I'm not stressing any of this. Yeah, I've just got a big pile of books I'm going to try to read from. If I can pick one story, that's fine. Kathy Koja is amazing. So, so if you, I haven't read Kathy Koja yet, maybe this is the week for you. Okay, so that will take care of my prompts for the old weird and the new weird. So the next prompt is out of this world. So any kind of weird fiction book or story that has science fiction elements. Science fiction, I think, is definitely a big part of weird fiction, and it's really fun, to play with inside the world of the weird. So here's the some stories that I would like to get to. And again, these are all short stories. Some of them are collections that I have, some of them are ebooks. Anyway, I do want to, I feel like you really can't talk about weird fiction and not mention H.P. Lovecraft. Definitely quintessential in the early days of weird fiction. And so I want to read The Color Out of Space. That's one of his stories that I've not read yet. So I'm just going to check out an ebook from my library of like a, collection of his stories, but I'm just going to read The Color Out of Space. I've had mixed feelings with Lovecraft. Some of his stories I really enjoyed, and some of them I'm like, but I've not read a ton, honestly. I've not read every single Lovecraft story by any means, so I definitely want to give him, give him another chance. And this one is one I've definitely been interested in reading. I think like a meteorite falls to Earth and like stuff happens, I think. So sounds pretty great. And another asteroid story. It's called Master of the Asteroid by Clark Ashton Smith. Clark Ashton Smith, another, he's got tons of freaking stories out there. And this particular short story is actually available on Scribd also. So Scribd actually has tons of weird fiction on there. I will mention that later, but if you've got Scribd, you can find some stuff there. So some books that I've also got here. I've got this book, Monsters by A. Van Vogt. And these are some cosmic horror stories, so I think they'll definitely pull in some science fiction elements, probably some dark stuff too. But again, I'm not going to try to read the whole, the whole collection, maybe just a story or two. So these are science fiction stories of cosmic horror and strange worlds of time and space. So this also, of course, will fit for old weird. I think a lot of these stories were from like the 40s. Yeah, 1942, 1952, 1950. So yeah. And that's just pretty rad cover also. So I'll read a story or two from here maybe. It's on my list, right? And the same with this one here. Now this one I don't know, because it is a full book. I don't know if I'll have time for it, but if I find time, I'd like to get to Rogue Queen by El Sprog de Camp. And again, another author, not read yet, but this sounds pretty great. And so if I have time, now it's not crazy long, but again, I've only had a week. So it's like 150-ish pages, but we'll see. Also has a really nice booze advertisement in the middle of it, so that's great. That's really nice. She looks saucy. Anyway, if I have time for that, I've got that on the list just in case I've got time for that. So it's probably like a novella. And then I actually found that you can read this online. You can find it online. It is actually called, the story is called The Comet, and it's actually by W.E.B. Du Bois. And I've heard it's really great, and I really want to check it out. Science fiction from a little science fiction story from W.B. Du Bois. Yes, please. Let me know if you read it, because I think it sounds really fascinating. So that's some of my science fiction stories that I want to pick, that I want to try to get to. Now, the next prompt, of course, is the dark stories, or weird fiction stories, or books that lean into horror or the supernatural. Very, very common within weird fiction, of course, leaning into the darkness side of things. So for some physical books, I do have this collection of Laird Barron stories. This is called the Imago sequence. I think these are all stories of like eldritch horror, like cosmic horror stuff. So yeah, I've read one thing by Laird Barron. So I've just been wanting to read more. So again, if I read like a story from this collection, I'll be fine with that. And yeah, I'm excited. Excited to get into some more Laird Barron, hopefully. This book here, Agents of Dreamland by Caitlin R. Kiernan. It's actually a novella, but it's not, it's not crazy long. It's like just over 100 pages. I'd love to have time to get to this. Caitlin R. Kiernan, of course, an author, very much, digging into the weird fiction side of things. So look up any kind of Caitlin R. Kiernan work. If you're looking for something, Caitlin R. Kiernan is absolutely someone to check into, and someone I haven't read yet. Yeah, I know. I hear you. So this one I think is also a bit cosmic horror, but also I think it's like, I don't even know what's going on in this one. I think there's also some science fiction elements too. I think this one's just sort of a catch-all for all of it, everything, and I'm gonna try to get to it. And I think there's an audiobook for this on Scribd that I saw too. FYI. Okay, what's next? I do have, now this is a bit older than our time period, The King in Yellow by Robert W. Chambers. But this is a really precursor to what we maybe think of weird fiction. And again, these are sort of, it says like here in the back, vaguely connected short stories, having as a background a monstrous and suppressed book whose perusal brings fright, madness, and spectral tragedy. Achieves notable heights of cosmic fear. And that's a little blurb from H.P. Lovecraft. So again, if I read like maybe like the first story from here and check it out, because like I've not read this yet, and I feel like I really should have read that by now. So what is next? Yeah, I've got a couple older books again that will fit into the old weird. Also, I've got a couple other books that will fit into old weird. These are just some I picked up at a used bookstore. But I've got some more kind of eldritch horror, cosmic horror based stories. This is The Mask of Cthulhu by August Derleth, and these are just again more little short stories. So I can read like a story or two from here, if I have time. Another amazing cover. Amazing cover. And then Robert E. Howard actually has some, some weird fiction. He's I think most known for like the Conan stories. Like I have this one called Wolf's Head. From the smoldering fires of hell itself, evil unleashes a new reign of horror. Look at that cover. It's so gnarly. I love it. So you can read a story or two from here. I've got it pulled out, and we'll see what I get to. Okay, so there are a few short stories on Scribd that are audio, including the Design by China Miéville. There's Wasp and Snake by Olivia Llewellyn, and Stemming the Tide by Simon Stranzis. John Langan has one of these audio stories called El Charro. If you've not read John Langan's The Fisherman, The Week of Weird would be the perfect time to read that. So there's a little audio short stories I can definitely fit in, while I'm at work. I do a lot of audio listening at work, so so those are some stories I could get into. And I probably won't have time, but I probably won't have time. But Pan's Labyrinth by Guillermo del Toro. This is sort of a story based on the movie, but absolutely weird, right? I love the little illustrations that are in this book too. I haven't read. I've been wanting to read this, but I don't have time for it. But it's also a suggestion for you if you're looking for something, and maybe you got this sitting on your shelf. I think it'd definitely work for the Week of Weird. So there's that. Okay, so that's kind of going to take care of the dark for me. Now, Flora and Fauna. Again, this is just a prompt I wanted to add. A lot of weird fiction seems to, like I said, work with like weird plants and sentient vines and all that kind of stuff. So my big novel for the week, it was not crazy long, but I'm going to finally read Born by Jeff Vandermeer. I don't know why I haven't read this yet, but I need to, and I'm going to, and I'm super excited. So this, I think Born is like some kind of creature who's like an experiment, discarded experiment from the company, a biotech firm now seemingly derelict, and punished by the unpredictable attacks of a giant bear. From one of her scavenging missions, Rachel brings home Born, who is a little more than a green lump, plant or animal, but who exudes a strange charisma. Rachel feels a growing attachment to Born, a protectiveness that she can ill afford. It's exactly the kind of vulnerability that will upend her precarious existence, unnerving her partner Wick and upsetting the delicate balance of their unforgiving city. Possibly forever. And yet, little as she understands what or who Born may be, she cannot give him up, even as Born grows and changes. So, yeah. And again, Jeff Vandermeer, just as an author, is a suggestion, your recommendation for the Week of Weird, because he definitely leans into the weird and knows a lot about weird fiction. As you can see, he's edited those two anthologies. So yeah, he's also really fun to follow on Twitter because he has like these wildlife cams around his property. Anyway, side note. So this will be my longer story for the week. I think the audio, I found it on Scribd, I think. So maybe I'll do audio, but maybe I'll read it. I don't know. We'll see. But this will be like my bigger story that I want to focus on for the week, for sure. And also another audio on Scribd, I found The Fish in Exile by Vicky Now. It's an audio, so I would like to get into that. A couple of actually on audio on Scribd also are 4 Weird Tales by Algernon Blackwood. Now I'm not sure if that they're Flora and Fauna, but several of his stories do deal with kind of like I said, creepy forests. So I'm putting it under here just to, and then there's a little short another story by Clark Ashton Smith called The Ninth Skeleton, which I read the blurb and now I can't remember now, but I think it was another kind of spooky forest kind of story. So those are my plans. It's a lot. It's kind of a lot. But again, they're short stories. I can probably read a couple a day, and do the audio during the day during my work week, and then of course we got some weekend days in there too. So I'm excited for everything, and I'm not stressing anything. I'll get to what I get to, but these are just sort of my master list, kind of what I would like to get to. So now some recommendation, again, any of these authors I mentioned are absolutely, you know, authors that you can, you know, look into. More the collections. If you've got The Dark Descent sitting on your shelf, you know, someone like Clive Barker, I think absolutely leans into the weird. There's a Shirley Jackson story in here. Somebody else is in here. There's an M.R. James story in here. So again, some old weird. There's a Lovecraft story in here, of course. Carl Edward Wagner, Robert Aikman, Charles L. Grant, all of these guys, all of these people definitely lean into the weird. Thomas M. Dish, I'd say, you know, kind of leans into the weird, for sure. There's a J. Sheridan Le Fanu story in here. Joanna Russ is in here. Definitely weird. Weird fiction is Joanna Russ. Tanith Lee. There's a story in here from Tanith Lee. I'll mention again. So yeah, this is another sort of anthology you can check out. Maybe, you know, library's got it, or again, I think this is another anthology that's pretty readily available, and it's an amazing collection. It's an amazing, you know, book to have on your shelf, I think. So, so there's that anthology. Also, maybe a bit more, maybe just slightly more obscure. Let me find it. What did I do with it? What did I do with that story? Well, there's this collection. I don't know where my book just went to, but it is called Fungi, and it is an anthology that it's all full of stories about fungus. You can't really go wrong there. That screams weird fiction. There's a story in there. I know John Langan has a story in there. It's a great collection. I've read it. John Langan has a story in there. Jeff Vandermeer's got a story in there. And tons of other people I can't remember now, and I don't know what I just done with the book. I just had it. I don't know where I put it. Okay, so anyway, so weird. So some books that I've got on my shelf. I don't know. Some books I have on my shelf. I really just are authors or books that, you know, I think kind of lean into the weird. For new weird, you know, Bunny by Mona Awad, I think definitely leans into the weird fiction. This is a wonderful story about set on university. It's a lot of fun. Like I mentioned, Kathy Koja, you can't go wrong. There's The Cipher. If you've not read The Cipher yet, you've got to read this book. It's so good. And then this is her newest release, Dark Factory, which I still haven't read yet. But Kathy Koja, just as an author in general, absolutely new weird. I would say definitely leans more towards the dark as far as the prompts go. Also, yeah, Kathy Koja, can't go wrong with Miss Kathy. A more, you know, sort of new author, absolutely, I would say Haley Piper leans into the weird, particularly The Worm and His Kings in particular. This is a cosmic horror story. So this was, you know, new weird, the dark, and I say out of this world too. It's kind of got a little bit of everything. And I would say, you know, she has a really awesome short story collection. So if you're just looking for a short story or two, this is a fantastic collection, and it's got everything in here. The dark. Was there some science? I think there were a couple of science fiction stories, and definitely some flora and fauna as well as by the cover. It's a fantastic. She's got this space horror story. I think definitely leans into the weird. This is a fantastic story also, and Queen of Teeth. I think definitely kind of transgresses horror a little bit and fits under weird fiction. So Haley Piper as an author, I'd say definitely fits for the weird fiction. As I would say Poppy Z. Bright, I would, you know, and I think just because, you know, their story just kind of, this, maybe not so much weird, but I think some of their short stories would qualify. And I might add this to my pile, actually. I got this recently, and I really want to read some of the short stories, because I think these will kind of lean into the dark and weird. So if you've got some Poppy Z. Bright stories. Samantha Schweblin, I think, in general, but particularly Fever Dream. This is a nice short book. You could definitely read it for the week. Can you shut the door, please? Thank you. This story is very much a fever dream, very strange, very unsettling. I really liked it though. It gets mixed feelings, but I really liked this one. I mentioned before as just an author who I've not read yet, but I need to, but it's Tanith Lee. I think definitely leans into, this would be new, weird, dark. I think she also gets a little sexy sometimes, but so any of this work by Tanith Lee, I think will be, and I'm sure there's some short stories out there also. I know this one, I think this one right here, I think is like 2 novellas kind of in one, but the Paradise books. Anyway, so Tanith Lee is definitely an author. A book in general is this by M.R. Carey, The Book of Coley. This would fits new, weird, science fiction, but also Flora and Fauna. Definitely deals with, I think, some like sentient alien plant life. I've been dying to read this. So I need to read this one, but definitely an option for you as well. If you're looking just maybe for one thing to read that week, you could dig into that one. Some more short stories. Or just an author really in general is of course Karen Russell. I think absolutely delves into weird fiction, maybe not so much the dark or science fiction, but just kind of weird in general. I have read her short story collection Vampires in the Lemon Grove. It's fantastic. I've not read these yet, but Karen Russell definitely is a modern, just weird lady, you know what I mean? And the same with this one here, I Hold a Wolf by the Ears by Laura Vandenberg. I think these were just again another short story collection of just some weird stuff, and another short story collection, Lesser Known Monsters of the 21st Century by Kim Fu. I think a lot of these again just general kind of weirdness, I think. Again, to mention an author, Jeff Vandermeer. Born is what I'm going to be reading. I think this is sort of a follow-up to Born. And then, of course, there's the whole Area X trilogy. The first book being Annihilation, science fiction elements, new weird, of course, and Flora and Fauna. I think it's really nice, like wind up of the whole trilogy, but definitely. Oh, here's my fungi book. So here's the fungi book. It was over here in this pile. Amazing cover, first of all. So let's. I remembered John Langan, and I remembered. W.H. Pugmire, has a story in here. Jeff Vandermeer. I mean, all these stories were. Paul Tremblay has a story in here. I don't remember his story, but again, if Simon Strancis has a story in here. Laird Barron, so this was a really fun collection, and actually I think this is on Scribd also as an ebook. I think that's how I read it the first time, and then I picked up a copy because I needed it. But this is a really just fun collection, and they range from, like, there's fantasy, there's again more horror type stories. It runs the gamut, but fungus in general, really fun. Few more books here, and don't overlook these, like collections. These year's best science fiction type. You can find them at. I find them at thrifts or library book sales a lot, but check your libraries themselves too. They may have copies of these. Sometimes you'll find weird fiction writers in here. Sometimes I like Kathy Koja's in some of these. I would imagine maybe China Miéville's in some of these. So just this one in particular. Let's see if I just grabbed one, but so let's see. Are there any kind of weird fiction authors in here? Let's see. Karen Joy Fowler is in this one. Kathy Koja. Kathy Koja has Angels in Love. That story is in here. Greg Egan has a couple stories here. So, don't overlook these science fiction anthologies also. You can find something there. Now, a book I'm not going to have time to get to because it's a bit on the chunkier side, but I'm going to read this soon because I really want to get to it. It's called The Vor by B. Catlane. This is it's not outside of a colonial town. Is the Vor, which is a vast, endless forest, sentient and magical. And I've just been dying to read this. I think it's part of a series. I just need to make time for it. And I have this collection too, by J. Sheridan Le Fanu, Green Tea and Other Ghost Stories. Le Fanu is just an author that you can look for also. And of course, I mean, like I said, you can't, I think, not mention H.P. Lovecraft. We can all acknowledge that he is a racist, piece of crap, but you can't deny his, impact on the, those early days of the weird. And so if you want to finally give one of his stories a try, I think this week is perfect for that. So I've just had this little collection of just a few stories, but there's big, vast collections of like his complete works and all, all kinds of stuff out there for Lovecraft. So like I said, I'm going to read Color of Space this time around. But all of his stuff's, pretty readily available. And a lot of these old weird authors you can find on Project Gutenberg. So you can absolutely read them for free and, and find them pretty readily. And again, check your libraries. Valuable source there. Okay. I did want to mention on Kindle Unlimited, I did find a couple of things on there. Probably need to dig a little deeper to see what all is on Kindle Unlimited. But if you have Kindle Unlimited and you're looking for something there, KG Bishop has a short story collection there called The Book Your Mad Ancestor Wrote. And also you can just read Saving the Gleeful Horse if you want to, which I think maybe one of their most well-known weird fiction stories. So if you just want to read that, you can just read that story. There was a couple of that I saw on there issues of Weird Fiction Quarterly. So it's like a sort of a magazine. So I'm sure it's got filled with different stories on there. And there's also this anthology called The Hideous Book of Hidden Horrors. You can read that on Kindle Unlimited. It will be a collection of really dark, strange stories. So I really want to get to that one too. But now look, there's a lot of things that I found on Scrib. I can't read everything here, but authors like Lisa Tuttle, Fritz Leiber, Robert Aikman, Livia Llewellyn, I've mentioned before, Simon Strancis, Algernon Blackwood, Kathy Koja, Victor Laval, stuff I think definitely leans into the weird. John Langan has that short story there. There's a story, Red Nails, by Robert E. Howard, you can find on there. E.T.A. Hoffman, Clark Ashton Smith stories, tons of Clark Ashton Smith on there. And there's also a couple of big sort of big collections called the Weird Fiction Mega Packs, which have stories from the old issues of Weird Tales. That was a magazine that came, I think it still comes out, I'm not even really sure, but Ferris Jeffrey started, my son's out right out the door, I apologize, this is my life, of weird fiction authors, that in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, had all these stories in there. And so you can, if you want to check one of those out and check it, they've got the women's weird collections on there. So there's a bunch of women's weird collections, but Women's Weird 1 and 2, which collects sort of really early time periods, sort of late 1800s, early 1900s. Both of those are on Scribd. There's a couple other women's weird. I'll kind of put those on the screen. That my library actually has both of these, and I don't know that I'll get to them this time around, but I'm going to check those out at some point and give those a go. There's tons of stuff on Scribd, so I'll try to make a list maybe on the Discord of things that I found on Scribd. So just if you have Scribd, they're there. And I've not mentioned Saki. If you've not, Saki is definitely an author. So for new weird, M. John Harrison, China Medieval, Jeff Vandermeer, some of Eric LaRocca, I think, would work for new weird. Kathy Koja, of course. Kelly Link, absolutely new weird. Laird Barron, who I've mentioned before, and Caitlin R. Kieran. The story Bloodchild by Octavia Butler absolutely leans into the weird, I think, of dark science fiction. It's a fantastic story. The Ballad of Black Tom by Victor Laval is a cosmic horror story, which is a direct response to an H.P. Lovecraft story. There's Weird Woods, Tales from the Haunted Forests of Britain. I've been wanting to read this one. This is definitely, of course, fits your flora and fauna of spooky woods. I mentioned The Fisherman by John Langan. Absolutely fantastic story. The Willows by Algernon Blackwood. Old weird. Flora and fauna. Super creepy story. If you've not read The Willows yet, it's fantastic. There's The Beetle by Richard March. Old Weird. Flora and Fauna too. It's got a beetle on it, right? I actually have that book, but I forgot to pull it. But again, tons of authors. There's so much more. But those are just, like I said, just a few things. And I will, if you join the Discord, I'll try to, kind of list authors there. I'll list maybe authors that are mentioned in these anthologies. So if you just kind of want to look for an author in general, I'll put that there. But yeah, and honestly, we're not the weird police. If you think it's going to be weird, read it. It's fine. So yeah, well, this is long. So those are my plans and a few little ideas for you. I hope that you're excited and join us for the week of weird. Let me know what you're going to read. Again, Jason and I are really excited for it. And I'll end it here. So thanks for watching. I appreciate your time. And yeah, stay weird. Bye.